One thing we don't know, and this is true of the SIBO yogurt as well as fermenting from a probiotic, over time, there are likely to be shifts in the relative numbers of microbes. And we have not yet done the analysis. So let's say the SIBO yogurt, if you're fermenting Lactobacillus reuteri, Lactobacillus gasseri, and Bacillus coagulans, at time 0, at the end of the first batch, you probably have 100 billion or so of each. How about the 5th batch? Does one dominate? Right. We don't know. We're going to do that in those analyses. It's just it's not difficult. It's just kind of cumbersome.
Yes.
How about the 10th? So what many people do is this. They co-ferment the SIBO yogurt and start from scratch every 5 or 6 batches or so, something like that. Or individually ferment, and there's no competition. That's probably the best. It's just a hassle, though, to have to do 3 simultaneous fermentations.
Okay. Yeah, I've done that before. It is a lot to manage. So if you are doing them individually, how long do you think, or how many times can you reuse the previous batch to culture the next batch? Do you have any info on that? Or do you need to go back to the supplements at some point?
It should be an infinite number. So in other words, if this is old-fashioned times, I gave you a tomato, right? And you eat the tomato, but you save the seeds. You can grow tomatoes. At the end of the growing season, you save a tomato, get the seeds. How many times can you do that? An infinite number of times. Same thing here. You can do it an infinite, as long as you're reasonably careful and don't do crazy things like sneeze on it or prepare it in the path of airflow from your air conditioner heating, and you blow fungi into it, something like that. One problem I only have come to appreciate recently is that we usually use inulin as the food to get higher counts of microbes. Well, the inulin's not sterile. And we did study the inulin. It has a very low count of microbes. So this will be an issue if you make the yogurt and you say, oh, this stuff stinks. And it separates a lot. You probably have a contaminant. Toss it out, start over again. Consider one of 2 things: buying a new source of inulin or preheating the dairy with the inulin in it. Not the microbe.
That would get rid of, okay.
But here's the limitation. It won't get rid of spore-forming microbes. So what we probably have to do at some point is get a manufacturer to take the inulin and do something like expose it to ultraviolet light to kill all the microbes. We haven't done that yet. We got to talk to manufacturers. There's some manufacturing hurdles doing that because you have to have it flat and thin.
Okay.
So working on it. But in the meantime, if you get a really bad batch, think about contamination, including from inulin. Buy a new batch of inulin and or heat the dairy with the inulin in it. Let it cool to room temperature or 100 degrees, then add your microbes.
Okay. Linda is saying, and we touched on this a little bit, I thought if you mixed the strains when fermenting, that 1 or 2 would dominate and keep you from the benefits of the others. Not so.
Well, it's probably true. We have not done the analysis, but that's why Neil and I talked earlier about how to prevent that, you can either start from scratch every so many batches, like every 5 batches or so, or ferment them individually so you don't have any kind of competition. So I think about, once again, a backyard garden. In your 10 by 10 plot, you've planted zucchini, tomatoes, and squash, and whatever else, cucumbers. Well, anybody who had a garden, zucchini takes over. So it could be that Reuteri, for instance, kind of takes over so many batches in. We will do the analysis, just haven't had a chance to do it yet. For that reason, start from scratch, a few batches in, or independently or separately ferment your microbes.
Okay, yeah. But if you're doing them individually, you don't have to worry about that. Which brand of inulin do you suggest? Do you have one that you
We don't have a preferred brand. It's kind of a commodity product, but it's clear that we need to have it sterilized. And there's no such thing as a sterile inulin on the market today. We looked at ours, and it did have some microbes. I mean, very few, not enough to make you sick. But if it contaminates your yogurt and you're fermenting it, or once again, you're amplifying bacterial counts, I think that's where the problem comes from. So we're going to have to find a way to probably ultraviolet treat the inulin. And then I'll say to you, okay, get it from here.
Yeah.
And they ultraviolet sterilize it first. We
Okay,
haven't
so
done
if anyone's looking for a good business to start, sterile inulin is where to go. Can you use acacia fiber instead of inulin for a prebiotic?
I've not done it, but people have told me that it's worked out fine, as has raw potato starch. But once again, we have that issue of there may be some microbes. This is not just unique to these prebiotic fibers. Almost everything we have has microbes in it because we live in we are to a huge degree microbial creatures. There are microbes all over us. They're in our eyes, brain, thyroids, bowels, of course, heart. We are walking microbe factories. And so likewise, products we come in contact with all have microbes also.